All right, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it's 5 minutes past 2 already.
Yeah.
And please allow me to open this discussion and by welcoming this webinar, by welcoming all our colleagues, fellow ICOMOS members from Malaysia and from Philippines. And in the guest list, I see some of my colleagues from ICOMOS Indonesia, Bu Ria, Bu Riri, Bu Anna, and many of them. I couldn't say it one by one, and also some other fellow from other organizations and from heritage as heritage activists like Ibu Ratri, Septina, and some other friends. And we are really delighted to have all of you coming here together for this first joint webinar between ICOMOS Indonesia and ICOMOS Malaysia. And this is the first joint webinar that ICOMOS Indonesia organized. This is a regular this should be a regular one for us. This is the second one after our earlier one 2 months ago. And we would like to do this beside our webinar meant for our internal members. We also look forward to organizing joint webinars with other national committees. And let me start by my short introduction by quoting our colleagues from Singapore, Professor William Lim, from his writing in 1998, which he said that the most bizarre reason that could possibly be suggested for urban conservation is to provide attractions for tourists. And for me, this is a very interesting introduction to this afternoon's discussion, as we all come from diverse backgrounds, but majority we are coming from tourism background, cultural tourism backgrounds, and also from urban conservation or building conservation. And the crossroads between these two fields always trigger some tensions and more debates than before, especially by governments who always put conservation at the second place, and then the tourism as the first place, as a way to let's say to extract the economic value of such heritage places. And these problems or these challenges, I think, has been a global one, and we are delighted, we are happy that ICOMOS International have issued or have stipulated a new charter on this field called the Cultural Heritage Tourism Charter. And we are very delighted to have and feel honored to have Dr. Ivan Henares from the Philippines as a member of the National Committee of ICOMOS Philippines, as well as an expert member in the ICTC, the Cultural Tourism ISC of ICOMOS. And also we have our fellow from our colleagues, Dr. Faisal from ICOMOS Malaysia, who is also very active in drafting this current charter on cultural heritage tourism. And I wish that we would have a fruitful discussion and we all can enjoy this webinar. And I look forward for all of you to join our coming webinar as well, organized by ICOMOS Indonesia. And now I invite my fellow president, Mr. KAB, Kian Boon Tiong, to give a short introduction or remarks, please.
Thank you, Pak Sohadi. My name is Tiong Kian Boon. I'm the current president of ICOMOS Malaysia. We are absolutely delighted that we are able to join host this meeting with ICOMOS Indonesia, and we have actually as part of the Asia Pacific ICOMOS regional grouping come up with a program to explain, if nothing else, to explain the cultural heritage, cultural tourism charter to our region. I stay in Malacca, which is the other half of the I like to think the better, but definitely the older half of the twin cities of the Straits of Malacca. And and we also have a joke, a joke, not quite a joke. Sometimes it's said in quite it's in some with some earnestness that getting the World Heritage inscription, getting inscribed on the World Heritage list is like committing UNESCO site. So when Faisal goes through the life examples compared with the charter, and when Ivan will be sharing with us, then you will see what I mean. I apologize that I will take my leave a bit earlier, but I will rejoin you soon after that. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing. I'm not too sure who is speaking first, but I look forward to hearing at least Dr. Ivan in full. But that means Faisal may have to speak first. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, KB. And now I will welcome my colleague Bu Rina as the moderator. Go ahead, Bu Rina. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hardy, and thank you, Mr. KB. It's good to see everyone here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, good day to everyone. So our agenda today, a little bit housekeeping. I hope you can mute your audio. Otherwise, we will mute you. And then the second thing, the first speaker would be Mr. Faisal Abd Rahman. Hopefully he will talk about a case in Malaysia, about 20 to 25 minutes, and then followed by Dr. Ivan. And then after that, we will have question and answers. While they're speaking, if you have any questions, please just put it in the chat. Or, in the end, then, I will moderate you to send your questions. So I think, and then before we start, let me introduce each of the speaker. So Bapak Faisal Abd Rahman is currently Deputy President of ICOMOS Malaysia, 2022 until 2024. He is also an expert member of the previously mentioned ICOMOS Committee on Cultural Tourism. He has 30 years of experience in planning and management of cultural tourism and served 3 terms as the president of ITTIM, the national organization that developed, managed, and implemented the Malaysia's occupational skill standards for tourist guiding, interpretation, and tour and travel operation management in Malaysia. So very important in terms of hospitality industry. And he was also involved in the development sustainable tourism strategy document for Malacca and Georgetown, and introduced the Cultural Heritage Specialist Guide course for both cities. Mr. Rahman holds a master's in values education and humanities. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Rahman. And the second speaker would be Dr. Ivan Anthony Henares. He is a Secretary General of the UNESCO National Commission of the Philippines, Commissioner of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. He also teaches at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. At present, he is also a Secretary General of the ICOMOS ICTC, the Cultural Tourism Committee, head of the Subcommission on Cultural Heritage and National Committee on Monuments and Sites of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. And this will be more abbreviation here. He's also chairperson of the Heritage Conservation Society, HCS, Philippine Committee President of the International Committee for the Conservation of the Industrial Heritage, also known as TICCIH Philippines. and board member of the Southeast Asian Heritage Alliance, SEACA. He was named as one of the outstanding young men in the field of heritage conservation in 2012. And to those of you who haven't followed Ivan, I suggest you to see his blog, Henares.com. And I think in 2005, he actually established a blog about cities that he visited, which is kind of like quite important that we want to talk about the cultural heritage tourism management right now. So without further ado, I will give the time to Bapak Faisal. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Rina. And I think firstly, I would like to thank ICOMOS Indonesia for organizing this joint webinar for the first time. It's also the first time for you. It's also the first time for us in a regional collaboration. Yeah, I think it all started off when the Asia Pacific region had their regular meetings. And I think in April, our president, Mr. KB, asked me to present on the cultural tourism charter. And it got a lot of the presidents of the Asia Pacific National Committee excited. It is something that is something which is it's not new, but something which is that needs to be addressed. Yeah. And I'm so happy that Pak Suhardi invited me to talk about the charter. But if I talk about the charter, just about the charter, it'll be quite dry, yeah, without any particular case study. And I actually contacted Fergus, our president, ICTC president, and our ICTC president sort of like gave me the task to actually do a series of webinar for the Asia Pacific region based on this new charter, because the charter has 7 principles. So our idea is actually to have one general one, and then go specifically one principle to the other principle for the next one. And probably at the end of the 7 webinar, we'll probably like to host a physical symposium where we gather people to share their experience. Yeah? Because the charter, being a charter, is a general conceptual document, and there is a need to actually look at it and how to understand it and how it will be implemented later on. Okay, so I will just start my share my slide. Okay, I don't know how to title my talk. I'm going to talk about tourism development and heritage conservation, the tension of it in Malacca World Heritage Site. I think first and foremost, I would like to thank Cik Roslino, currently the Heritage Commissioner for Penang, and before that, a long time General Manager for Malacca World Heritage Site. So he has insights on the management of both sites. Yeah. Now, my first slide, I thank Afzal for this. This is a map of Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia is actually one of the largest region in the world, with almost over 700 million people, and we're stuck between 2 big regions, China and India. And in Southeast Asia, we have now currently 11 countries altogether. Yeah, and I'm just going to talk about World Heritage Site in Southeast Asia. If you look at it, Southeast Asia has 42 World Heritage Sites, where in Malaysia we have 4, 2 cultural heritage and 2 natural heritage. In Indonesia, I think you have 9, 5 cultural heritage and 4 natural heritage. So we have 42 altogether. Now comparing that to China, which is one country, they have 56 World Heritage Sites. And comparing to a very small country in Europe, Italy has 58 World Heritage Sites. I think Southeast Asia, I think we are quite new. I think there are more World Heritage Sites here. It's just that maybe in terms of experience and exposure and understanding, we are quite lacking behind. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about Malacca. I think a lot of people, the Malaysians and Indonesian, will know. This is the street. Can you see my cursor or no?
Yes, we
Okay.
can, Faisal.
Okay. If you look at this straits that separates Indonesia and Malaysia, is called the Straits of Malacca. And I think currently the Straits of Malacca is probably one of the busiest straits in the world, where 60% of transshipment ship passes through it, and 25% of petroleum passes through it. So it's a very important straits, and this name of the strait is named after a small state in Malaysia, Malacca, and that Malacca is named after a small river, very small river. I will show you later on, called Sungai Malacca. So from that small river, you get that small state and this very busy and very important straits. Yeah. Of course, now I think the country that benefit most from the strait is Singapore. Singapore is also one of the largest port and benefited from the trade through these straits. Now, this is the inscription of Malacca and Georgetown. And Malacca and Georgetown, the full name is the Historic Cities of the Straits of Malacca. It's not just Malacca, it's a serial nomination. But I'd like to show here that actually the whole thing started 20 years ago. We were inscripted in 2008, but the entire process of getting it inscribed started in 1988. I think yesterday, 2 days ago, I was talking to KB, and KB said that twice or three times it got rejected. Yeah. And there are many reasons. The first reason was actually the amount of reclamation and urban development that is happening around the historic core. The second reason for rejection was because of the lack of community voice or community involvement in the dossier. And I think finally Malacca and Georgetown, after the advice of UNESCO Bangkok, decided to go jointly and to use the Straits of Malacca, that important Straits of Malacca, as the common OUV or value that they highlight. And I think the intention at that time was actually later on, cities like Phuket and Medan and Palembang can join in, because they are also historic cities of the Straits of Malacca. And the trade that happens here actually created the unique values in this city. Okay, so that's a bit on the history of the listing. Now, if you look at the map of Malaysia, Malaysia consists of 13 states. Yeah? We are states, we are not province. Each state has their own government and legislative body. And in fact, today is the election for a day for 6 of the 13 states of Malaysia. And Malacca is actually the second smallest of all the 13 states. It's actually here. And I'd like to show a little bit about let me move the, I can't see my slide. Okay, this is the zoning of Malacca World Heritage Site. The red one is our core zone, and the white is the buffer zone. And actually, this is a revised boundary because if you know, Malacca is a port city, but we are so far away from the city now, from the sea now, because a lot of land reclamation has happened along the coast. And in order for Malacca to have a connection with the sea, the site is actually the border is actually expanded out like that. And this is actually the core zone, and the Sungai Malacca, the small Malacca River, flows in between these two core zones. This is actually the map and the various land reclamation that is happening. So we were the city was by the sea, but now it's quite far. It's probably about 5 or 6 kilometers off from the sea. This is the core zone again, with the river in the middle. On that side is the commercial side. On this side is the civic side. Yeah, the government and the government buildings administration is on this side, and commercial is on the other side. And a little bit of history. I took this from Cik Rosli. This is a map of Malacca in 1640, drawn by the Portuguese. Also, you see the two sides. You see the government and civic side on this side, and the commercial side on here. And the border of our core zone actually follows the fort. There is a stone fort on this side, and there's a wooden fort on this side. This is a photo also from Cik Rosli, a visit of Lopez de Esquerra in 1509, yeah? Which I think they found in the archive of Portugal. And the next picture is the attack of Malacca by the Portuguese in 1511. If you look at this photo, there's something peculiar here, is that they already depicted a fort. So there was a fort before the Portuguese fort. The fort so during the Sultanate period, there is the fort around it. But unfortunately today, this period of the Malacca Sultanate from 1262 to 1511, there is nothing left. If you go to the city, there is nothing and no evidence left of that era except for documents. Yeah, and there is an effort to actually imagine or revive back the Sultanate. In fact, if you go to Malacca now, there is a museum that actually was built, a replica of the museum actually based on writings, not drawings, but actually writing. So here later on, I'm going to talk about interpretation. How do you interpret it? Because Malacca has many layers. It started off with the Sultanate Malay area layer. And then on top of that layer, the Portuguese built their heritage, their layer. And on top of that, you have the Dutch and the British and all that. So Malacca has got many layers of history. So now this is the Portuguese period from 1511 to 1641. Also, very little of the remnant is left of that particular period. But they are all now tourist attraction. But they are all ruins. Yeah. But apart from just tangible heritage left, or these ruins or these monuments left, the Portuguese also have a community. They actually live near the heritage site, and they speak an old form of Portuguese, which I think the Portuguese also don't understand. It's a 16th century Portuguese that we'll share later on. Okay, now in 1641, the Dutch came. Of course, at the same period, I think the Dutch also went to Indonesia, and the Dutch actually reconstructed the city. So the city of Malacca today is actually the form of it was actually from the Dutch period. It never actually moved, because when the Dutch were in Malacca, they were already interested in Batavia. I think the 1600, they are already moving there, and they took Malacca not to build it. So Malacca sort of like went into a time warp. It just froze in time. It is probably one of the oldest Dutch town outside of Europe, still intact as it is from 1600. Probably Batavia is also like that, the Kota Lama, but because the Dutch continually stayed in Indonesia, so buildings were demolished and rebuilt and demolished and rebuilt. But this one is like, it's in time, it is 1600, the layout. So that is the Dutch in Malacca. You can still see the wall and the town on this side, and the Sungai Malacca in the middle. And in 1824, the British came. So this is a photo during the British period. There's no longer the fort. The fort has been demolished, and you can actually see inside the fort from from, I think that it was demolished in 1806, I think, Cik Rosli. This is another photo of Malacca during the British period without the wall. So there's no longer a wall now, but there is a lot of former Dutch officer building, and the Portuguese church is on the hill. But the Dutch never used that church because they are different religion. Yeah, the Portuguese are Catholic and the Dutch were I think Protestant. Yeah, Protestant, and in fact, if you look at now, the Roman Catholic Church is outside the city and not inside the city anymore. And in 1910, the port of Malacca was closed down because by the time the British arrived, they were not interested in the port anymore because the British has already opened Singapore. And because the port ceased operation, there is a lot of out-migration of people. So people from Malacca actually moved to Penang and later on moved to Singapore. And by 1930, Malacca became a sleepy hollow and with very little development. However, because of there's no development, many of the buildings are preserved as it is. Now, this is Malacca in 1970s. In 1970s, Malacca was one of the poorest state in Malaysia. The GDP per capita is the fourth lowest in Malaysia, and GDP growth was 5.2% below national average in the 1970s, and unemployment was very, very high. It's higher than the national average at that time. Was about 8% of the national number. In 1980s, the Sungai Melaka became one of the most polluted river in Malaysia. You see, you look at all these houses on both sides, all their toilets and kitchen actually faces this river, and a lot of the waste and whatever is dumped back into the river. That's Malacca in 1980s. This is the building, yeah, the Dutch building that I showed earlier, and this was actually housing the Chief Minister's office. So in 1980s, I think Malacca was too small. There wasn't enough land. There wasn't enough resources. There's not enough population. The transportation system was lacking, you know, and it was poor. And in 1984, the Malacca government decided to look at tourism as a key driver for economic growth for Malacca. So basically, what I want to say is I think a lot of the heritage conservation in Malacca was motivated or driven by the need to actually develop the economy through a new economic sector, which is actually tourism. So tourism was the main motivation earlier, yeah. And actually, it started off in 1982. The State Economic Development Corporation was tasked to actually develop tourism. But at that time, to them, tourism is only the development of mega tourist attractions like the zoo, Mini Malaysia, ICOMOS Resort, Famosa Resorts, and all that. They got a lot of federal fundings for it, and to do a lot of beautification. And they did two restoration. One is to restore the State House, that red building that I showed earlier, and to reconstruct back the Sultanate Palace, yeah, replica. And from then on, Malacca became a heritage city in 1992. And as you know, 2008, it was inscribed as a World Heritage Site. So actually, the conservation or the heritage part grew later on. The tourism was the main motivation at that time, and it was only to use the history and heritage of Malacca as a destination image builder, yeah, for Malacca. This is the arrival, tourist arrival in Malacca, which I tracked back from 1980s all the way to now. And if you see, there is a lot of jump in tourism development, especially when after the inscription in 2008. Sorry, this tourist arrival is inclusive. It's for foreign tourists plus local domestic tourists. So a lot of the international tourists start arriving there. And I think there's something that goes down here, which is the COVID period. So and here tourism really suffered. I was talking to Cik Rosli yesterday. Penang probably didn't suffer as much as Malacca because Malacca was totally built on tourism. And whereas Penang, the economy was more diverse, yeah, and it really impacted the people in Malacca during the COVID period. Next is now today, not today, but probably just before COVID, Malacca was transformed into one of the richest states in Malaysia. Just now I said in 1970 they were very poor, and now suddenly it became very rich through tourism. It is the top 5 contributor to the national GDP, and the GDP per capita is higher than national average in 2019, and unemployment became very low at 2%. So you can see the positive impact on tourism. This is again, the building is all the State House building is already restored with this little fountain here. So this is very nice, very beautiful. This is always used as a image to attract people to come to Malacca. But in reality, when you come to Malacca, this is what you see. There is a lot of people, and you see this "I love Malacca" what do you call this, signage, which people like to take photo here. And I think they appreciate this "I love Malacca" than they appreciate this building because it's so touristy, the number of people there. And you see souvenir shops here selling so many type of imported China-made or Vietnamese-made souvenir. But it's okay. It gives income to the local community, and it's just that probably because Malacca do not have as much souvenirs or things to sell. Yeah. So this is what you see basically on a weekend in Malacca. Now you cannot even take photo of this place, and the tourism plan in Malacca was actually very piecemeal. And it's very infrastructure based. Yeah, it's all about infrastructure, attracting investment, doing promotion, and all that. And whenever there is budget for conservation, it's always a different agency. It's not under the tourism unit of the city. And Malacca, of course, have the conservation management plan, but again, visitors management is something which is quite lacking in Malacca. And of course, one important thing is that the revenue capture. How does tourism money can be captured for the purpose of heritage conservation? I think that is quite lacking at the moment. And then here again, you see buses. There's no parking. Buses just park everywhere they want early in the morning to take tourists around the area. Of course, I think this is also another picture of a massive congestion happening in Malacca in the weekend. But Malacca is actually, it's not like that every day. Yeah, Malacca is what we call a weekend city. It's only when during the weekend that we have this 2-3 hours long traffic jam. And I think there are many efforts done by various people. Like for example, the city council is working on making Malacca more walkable and introducing the green buses, and there are tourist guides that are offering night tours rather than day tours in order to move either disperse the tourists from this popular area or disperse the tourists from certain times of the day. So if you ask local citizen, how do you cope? Very easy. So every weekend we just don't come to the city lah. So avoidance is the only coping strategy that local have. Because just imagine people are still living in the area, and now it's all full of these cars. Next, I want to talk about interpreting Malacca. Just like people like to just take photo in the "I love Malacca" what do you call this structure, and yet don't understand the heritage or the buildings behind it. Yeah, and this was a picture of the early picture I showed some of the Dutch colonial officers building. Yeah, These were all taken over by the government, and now all this became museums. So Malacca is the land of museum. But if you look at the museum actually don't talk about the buildings, yeah, and it all talks about trying to relive back the Malacca Sultanate period, where you know it was lost. This original layer, the Malay Muslim layer, was lost, and they needed to highlight it back. So a lot of this museum were used to actually highlight things which probably do not relate to that building. Like, for example, we have the Islamic Museum, the Islamic World Museum, the Independence Museum. In fact, we have UMNO Museum. If you know, UMNO is like Golkar in Indonesia. Yeah, they are the main. There is a museum, and one of it is used as a. So basically, the interpretation of the story of Malacca tend to be very top down. It's very politically motivated. Yeah. However, I think lately we have a lot of local association. Yeah. Local association like the Chiti, the Bukit China people, the Portuguese, that are starting to actually tell their story. I think that it's important that not only that the story of a place is political, top down, but there is also a need to actually listen to stories from the local communities. Yeah. Actually, this is what if you talk to a lot of our guides, this is what actually attract people to Malacca. It's the culture, it is the people, and all that, rather than that very museum, government type museum, yeah, to the place. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about. I'm just jumping and just pointing up to certain area. This is actually Malacca before the reclamation, yeah. And if you look at before the reclamation, all the heritage building faces the sea, and this is actually the Padang, yeah, the field, the main square, the main public space for Malaccan, and this is the public park where people actually hang out where local community hangouts, and actually they play football, and people sell souvenirs. At that time, a lot of the souvenirs are made in Malacca, like the anyaman, and a lot of things that are all made before the arrival of tourism thinklets from China and all that, and local people actually do it. And we can actually experience riding the bullock cart and all that here. But this is how it is now. Now there is a shopping complex on that field, and the field became so small, and it is already on top of a shopping complex. And there's a lot of restriction. People cannot play football and all that. So the public space by the people has already been taken over by development and tourism. So there we have the whatever field that we have now is in between two shopping complex. In fact, it's above a car park, I think. Betul, Cik Rosli? Yeah. Okay. And the park that we have now is all taken over by tourists. And of course, as I said earlier, the locals will just say, oh, it's okay. We can, when the tourists come, we just avoid the tourists now. We go out. And back lanes, yeah. Back lanes is something which also now is subject. A lot of the back lanes have been beautified. But again, the back lanes are all filled with tourists. And they are passing through people's kitchen and all that, you know, and picking in people's door and all that. The privacy of the people or local community is quite disturbed. Okay, anyway, I just move on. Then COVID came in 2019. When COVID came, suddenly everything came into a standstill. And I think a lot of people lost their job. A lot of hotels closed. Buses, tour buses are all parked, and no tourists arrived there. But the river became very clean. The river became very clean. I saw some pictures where you can actually see the fish and the animals there. Lastly, probably I want to talk a little bit about the resilience of the people. I think in terms of risk preparedness, I think Malacca doesn't have that earthquake or flood or regular flood that is happening. But I think there is a risk of fire. I think Cik Rosli like to use this photo. This is actually a temple. It's one of the oldest school in the old town. But this is a reconstructed one, because there is a market in the middle, and fire broke off here a few years ago. and the fire engine cannot go through here because of this, and they do not have any back lane because Malacca somehow do not have any back lane. So this burned down, and it was reconstructed back. I think it's something which as a World Heritage City, we need to be prepared for all this sort of risk. And of course, this is one mega plan. I don't know whether this plan is on or not. The city is here, and to turn this island into Malacca Gateway, so you can see how much development is going to surround Malacca, and it's going to be slightly higher than the actual old residential area, and there is also prone to flooding in this area. So climate change will also affect. I think one of the challenge for Malacca now is how to transform tourism. I mean, tourism is great and big. It has brought the state from very poor to very rich, brought people and all that. But how do you transform tourism into a tool for heritage conservation, community empowerment, and risk preparedness? So I'd like to end with 7 conclusion. And 7 because I think after this, Ivan will talk about the 7 principles of the new charter. Number 1, I think tourism Malacca evolved without holistic or integrated planning. It was piecemeal done by different agencies and at different times. And I think the coordination from amongst government levels is a bit lacking. When I ask, that agency will say, oh, that's that agency, and this agency will say, oh, that's that agency, and so on. And number 2 is the carrying capacity issue, where people converge to certain places at certain time of the day in certain popular places, and there is a need to actually disperse them, whether disperse them to time or to space. Number 3 is to actually provide host community or local community to tell their stories. Apart from the official political narrative, there's also they need to open up for local community to tell their stories. And in terms of participatory governance, so like I say, they're losing their public park, they lose their back lane and all that. I think when it was done, engagement was probably quite big. So I think a lot of this new beautification and tourism projects should have a lot more community participation. And the limitation and vulnerability of heritage need to be informed and shape tourism decision making and communication. I think a lot that tour bus that comes in, I think the engagement with tour operators, when I asked why isn't there much engagement with tour operators, and the answer is tour operators in Malacca are not from Malacca, because Malacca is not an entry point. Tourists come from Singapore, or tourists come from Kuala Lumpur, tourists come from Penang, and from there they take the bus. The tourist guide us from there. So very little tourist guide in Malacca. People who guide in Malacca or tour operators that bring people to Malacca are not local. They're actually from Kuala Lumpur or from Johor Bahru. And any strategic planning for cultural tourism should include disaster risk management. And lastly, I think tourism and visitor management must contribute to effective climate action. So I think that's the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. And over to you, Ibu Rina. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Faisal. I enjoy Malacca from my previous visit, so it's a kind of like not only a review, but we can understand also from different point of views, especially if we have time, we can talk more about the local community who actually lives there. So without further ado, I think I'll just pass to Dr. Ivan. Please, you have 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Rina, and good afternoon to everybody. I am here to present the 2022 International Charter for Cultural Heritage Tourism of ICOMOS. So this is something that the ICTC worked on updating for quite some time, and it was finally approved last year. So just as a backgrounder, the International Cultural Tourism Committee was among the first international scientific committees of ICOMOS organized in 1969. And it was during the second ICOMOS General Assembly in Oxford that the Symposium on the Conservation, Preservation, and Enhancement of Monuments and Sites in connection with the development of cultural tourism was organized, and a resolution was adopted. So in 1976, a charter was adopted as the result of the International Seminar on Contemporary Tourism and Humanism held in Brussels from the 8th of 9 and to 9th of November 1976. And this can be considered the first international document focused on the need for a responsible tourist approach to cultural heritage, and it is also anticipated. It also anticipated the recognition of sites and monuments as a source of economic benefit and cultural education. So this charter was again updated in 1999 by the ICTC. So from 1999 to 2022, there was the second version of the charter was being used, and finally, in 2022, we were able to update the charter for a third time, for a second time. This is the third version of the charter, the ICOMOS International Charter for Cultural Heritage Tourism 2022, reinforcing cultural heritage protection and community resilience through responsible and sustainable tourism management. So you can actually see the copies of the three versions of the charter in the ICOMOS ICTC website. So we invite you to visit the website. There is a lot of information on the different activities of the ICTC way back to its foundation in 1969. So we actually have the 2022 charter translated into several languages, and hopefully this can be translated into Bahasa, Malaysia and Indonesia in the near future. So the charter, of course, what necessitated the revision of the ICOMOS charter was the profound growth and disruption in global tourism. So one of the reasons for the updating, of course, was the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, this affected, the growth and the disruption affected cultural heritage tourism. And the process, of course, resulted into this new charter, which I just mentioned, and it complements and updates the previous one that was approved in 1999. So in addition to recognizing the intensified tourism use of cultural heritage places and destinations, this charter addresses increasing concerns about the degradation of cultural heritage, along with the social, ethical, cultural, environmental, and economics rights issues associated with tourism. So in this charter, cultural heritage tourism refers to all tourism activities in heritage places and destinations, including the diversity and interdependence of their tangible, intangible, cultural, natural, past, and contemporary dimensions. Of course, the Charter recognizes heritage as a common resource, understanding that the governance and enjoyment of these commons are shared rights and responsibilities. So the Charter actually has three objectives. The first one is to place the protection of cultural heritage and community rights at the heart of cultural heritage tourism policy and projects. So the Charter provides principles that will inform responsible tourism planning and management for cultural heritage protection, community resilience, and adaptation. The second objective is to promote stakeholder collaboration and participatory governance in the stewardship of cultural heritage and management of tourism, applying a people-centered and rights-based approach, emphasizing access, education, and enjoyment. And the third objective is to guide cultural heritage and tourism management in supporting the UN Sustainable Development Goals and climate action policy. So who's this charter for? The responsible management of tourism is, of course, shared by governments, tourism operators, tourism businesses, destination managers, and marketing organizations, site management authorities, land use planners, heritage and tourism professionals, civil society, and of course, visitors. So this charter is definitely relevant to all of the above as cultural heritage and tourism stakeholders. And the charter provides guidance for heritage and tourism practitioners, professionals, and decision makers within international, national, and local government agencies, organizations, institutions, and administrations. And it is also a reference for educators, academics, researchers, and students engaged with cultural heritage and tourism. So um, we have to remember that the charter applies to the management of all cultural heritage properties and to the entire spectrum of their protection, conservation, interpretation, presentation, and dissemination activities. Of course, because these are all connected with and influenced by public use and visitation. So the charter actually has 7 principles, and I would briefly discuss these 7 principles. Of course, the first one is to place cultural heritage protection and conservation at the center of responsible cultural tourism planning and management. So we have to remember that cultural heritage protection and management must be placed at the center of cultural tourism policies and planning. I know this is a challenge for many of us in our region. Well, especially our tourism departments really need to include protection and management of cultural heritage when we do our planning or tourism programs. And we also know that well-managed cultural heritage tourism enables communities to participate while maintaining their heritage, social cohesion, and cultural practices. So this charter really focuses on the communities. It gives a lot of emphasis on host communities in order for them to really benefit from the tourism that they experience. At the same time, they are part of that management. So they are a very important part of tourism management. So tourism planning and cultural heritage management must be coordinated across all levels of governance in order to identify, assess, and avoid the adverse impacts of tourism on the heritage fabric, integrity, and authenticity. So again, we have to make sure that tourism planning, cultural heritage management is done across all levels of governance. From, of course, from the grassroots. Very important that we make sure that the grassroots, the communities, the host communities, are a very important part of that process. So also important is that tourism development, infrastructure projects, and management plans must contribute to preserving the integrity, authenticity, aesthetic, social, and cultural dimensions of heritage places, including their settings, natural and cultural landscapes, host communities, biodiversity characteristics, and the broader visual context. I mean, for us here in the Philippines, it's quite a challenge, especially in our World Heritage sites. Tourism development is bringing much of the economic activity to the World Heritage Site, but of course, this economic activity brings challenges as well, and we have to make sure that we are able to ensure that tourism actually preserves the integrity and authenticity of the sites rather than detract from the outstanding universal value. So also important, revenues generated from through tourism or through cultural heritage tourism must contribute to the conservation of cultural heritage and provide benefits to local communities. So the revenues should be collected and allocated in a transparent, fair, equitable, and accountable manner. So the second principle is that we manage tourism at cultural heritage places through management plans informed by monitoring, carrying capacity, and other planning instruments. So the protection of cultural heritage and resilience of host communities requires careful tourism planning and visitor management. And that, of course, will include monitoring of impacts on natural and cultural values of the place, as well as on the social, economic, and cultural well-being of the host community. So these cultural heritage management plans must include tourism sustainability and visitor management strategies. And of course, these plans should integrate a range of measures, including carrying capacity indicators in order to control, concentrate, or disperse visitors as appropriate. So again, there are many types of carrying capacities that we need to measure, and the charter actually indicates some of them, and one of them is physical carrying capacity. So we need to identify carrying capacity or limits of acceptable change, because it is essential to avoid negative impacts on the heritage. So the minimum carrying capacity assessments, of course, should include physical carrying capacity, which is the ability of a place to host visitors depending on its condition, fragility, and conservation status, while providing appropriate visitor services. The second carrying capacity measure is ecological, and this is the ability of the ecosystem and host communities to accommodate visitors while maintaining sustainability, functionality, and heritage values. Then we also have social and cultural carrying capacity, the degree to which communities can host visitors while providing quality visitor experiences. And we also have economic carrying capacity, the degree to which tourism supports economic diversity at local, regional, and/or national levels. So the third principle is to enhance public awareness and visitor experience through sensitive interpretation and presentation of cultural heritage. And again, this is a very important aspect of tourism, that we have sensitive interpretation and presentation of the heritage that tourists visit. And responsible tourism and cultural heritage management must provide accurate and respectful interpretation, presentation, dissemination, and communication. It must offer opportunities for host communities to present their cultural heritage firsthand. So it's very important that the host communities are a part of discussions or how we interpret and present the heritage site. So we should give them the opportunity to present it in their point of view. Heritage presentation and promotion should interpret and communicate the diversity and interconnections of tangible and intangible cultural values in order to enhance the appreciation and understanding of their significance. So again, when we present and promote, we need to communicate diversity and interconnections between tangible and intangible cultural values. So the authenticity, values, and significance of places are often complex. They are contested and multifaceted. And because of this, every effort should be taken to be inclusive when considering the interpretation and presentation of information. Interpretation methods should not detract from the authenticity of the place. So again, these are issues that should always be discussed when we talk about cultural tourism. So the fourth principle is to recognize and reinforce the rights of communities, indigenous peoples, and traditional owners by including access and engagement in participatory governance of cultural and natural heritage commons used in tourism. So I know this is something that is important for us here in Southeast Asia, as we have a host of indigenous peoples in our countries. And what we want is to make sure that they are part of participatory governance and not just consulted. They have to be part of the decision-making process. Exponential growth in international tourism has exposed blind spots and the lack of sensitivity towards the vulnerability of many tourism-dependent communities and those who have experienced tourist visitation imposed on them without their free, prior, and informed consent. So again, this is a very important issue. There is a need for free, prior, and informed consent, especially when we involve our indigenous communities. Here in the Philippines, it's still a bit of a challenge because we have issues with the process itself of free, prior, and informed consent. There is a move to really make sure that the process is pro indigenous communities rather than to focus on government bureaucracy. So we are actually going to be improving this system hopefully in the next few years. Indigenous peoples, traditional owners, and the host communities have a right to express their views on heritage and to manage it according to their established practices and meaning. So again, it's very important that when we introduce tourism to indigenous communities, these host communities have that right to express, their views and really tell their story. And as I mentioned earlier, we're not just here to consult them. It should be participatory governance. They should be major players in managing their own sites. And of course, when we do the management of these sites, it has to be in line with their own practices, their own indigenous knowledge and cultural practices. So the development of responsible cultural tourism must go beyond local stakeholder consultation and involve participatory governance and benefit share. Again, it's not just consultation here. That is not enough. When we talk about host communities, especially indigenous peoples, we need them to be part of the decision-making process. And of course, more importantly, they have to reap the benefits of tourism. There should be a tangible, equitable, and in fact, sizable benefit share from tourism revenues. The fifth principle is to raise awareness and reinforce cooperation for cultural heritage conservation among all stakeholders involved in tourism. So again, awareness and cooperation is those keywords that we need to remember, because cultural tourism cannot be considered an economic activity detached from the place where it occurs. And when we talk about tourism, visitor activities and services must be part of and compatible with everyday life and social activity. So we just can't introduce activities or programs that are problematic for the host community. So it has to be compatible with the everyday life and social activity, contributing to a sustained local sense of place and pride. Again, very important for our communities to really understand what tourism is, and of course, feel ownership for the programs. Cultural and tourism products and services including events and festivals, have to be consistent with the identity of places and their communities. I know that this is quite a challenge, and there have been a lot of new festivals introduced into the communities, which are more commercial than they are consistent with the identity of those places. So we really have to ensure that there are proper safeguards to ensure that these activities or these events, these festivals, are consistent with what the community or the community way of life. Heritage managers, public tourism managers, and private tourism operators, entrepreneurs, and people involved in cultural and creative industries need to generate and or maintain formal and informal networks for communication and collaboration. Again, very important here is that there is communication between all the stakeholders and collaboration as well. We need to make sure that the host community is involved in these activities. So the sixth principle is to increase the resilience of communities and cultural heritage through capacity development, risk assessment, strategic planning, and adaptive management. And again, very important for us in Southeast Asia, as we are one of the regions which, of course, are affected by climate change. Considering the disruptions affecting tourism, ongoing systemic and pervasive global problems, and emergent risks, it is necessary to enhance the resilience, adaptive, and transformative capacities of communities to deal with future challenges and disruptions related to climate change, loss of biodiversity, and or calamities that affect cultural heritage. Of course, our countries are among the mega diverse countries in the world, and we really need to look at how tourism can really address these issues. The massive decline in tourist activities due to the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the vulnerability of many heritage places and the communities hosting cultural tourism. And we've seen how those communities that really depended on cultural tourism suffered during the pandemic. And we need to make sure that they are prepared for this eventuality if it happens again in the future. So it has clearly demonstrated that tourism must actively contribute to recovery, resilience, and heritage conservation, and that heritage places and host communities must consider adaptation options. So the last principle, principle number 7, is to integrate climate action and sustainability measures in the management of cultural tourism and cultural heritage. So again, climate action and sustainability, very important for our region. The climate emergency is an existential threat to the planet and the civilization as we know it, and it jeopardizes cultural and natural heritage and threatens the livelihoods and the well-being of people across the world. Tourism-dependent communities are particularly vulnerable, and that is very much true in Southeast Asia. And because of that, all cultural tourism stakeholders must take action to mitigate, reduce, and manage climate impacts. Of course, these actions should enhance the ability of communities to generate, retain, and maintain sustainable benefits from cultural tourism. So again, we really need to really look at this climate crisis when we talk about cultural tourism. And tourism and visitor management must contribute to effective carbon and greenhouse gas reduction, waste management, reuse, recycling, energy and water conservation, green transport, and infrastructures that comply with international and national targets. So again, the full tourism charter can be downloaded from the ICOMOS ICTC website, as well as from the ICOMOS website. It is available in, I think, already 7 or 8 languages, and we do hope that the Southeast Asian national committees can start translating the charter into our own languages. So so far, I think we don't have any Southeast Asian translation of the charter. I know there was a previous translation for 1999, but for 2022, we have yet to get translations for that. So on behalf of the International Cultural Tourism Committee, I'd like to thank everyone for allowing us to present this new charter to our colleagues here in Southeast Asia. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email me through my university email. And of course, the ICTC email is there as well. So again, thank you very much to everyone for the time.
Thank you, Ivan. All right. So before moving to the question and answer, I wonder if, all of us can a little bit turn on your video so we can feel your presence in the same room. Thank you. All right. Okay. So yeah, thank you, Pak Faisal and Dr. Ivan. We have two questions. I think the first one is from Punto about the Melaka kind of like development model or plan, whether it's a kind of like also travels or implemented or affected in other area, territory, or states in Malaysia. That's the first one. And then the second one is to both of you from ST. It's actually about, so the question, I will read it. Do the tourism activities that is massive in Malacca raises conflict with the locals? If it does not at the moment, is there any particular strategy to prevent it? And I think Ivan mentioned about the principles, and perhaps if you can also talk a little bit more about the locals and the hosts in this case. So yeah, Ivan.
Gurina, can I answer first? The first question:
Sure.
Does the development model of Malacca influence the cultural heritage conservation policies in Malaysia? Yeah, I think one thing about Malacca is that they were one of the earliest. I mean, they started in 1988 and so on. There are many examples, lesson from Malacca, good example, bad example. And I think the National Heritage Conservation Guidelines, a lot of them refer to the experience of Malacca. In fact, very recently, last year or last 2 years, the Department of Planning of Malaysia developed a new guideline for conservation of towns, what we call historic towns which are not World Heritage Sites or do not have any gazetted heritage status, like little small town. Their local authority wanted a guideline of how do you manage and how do you manage your historical area. And they actually visited Malacca and used a lot of the Malacca example. But there's a problem there because Malacca being quite early, they have the capacity, they have the understanding, they have the manpower, they have the ability to actually implement. So once we use this guideline and use it for smaller towns, it is quite difficult because the capacity is not there. So I think that is the status at the moment. I think next week the Department of Planning wants to meet up with a lot of these smaller authorities in Malaysia and to see how this new guideline can be implemented. I think Malacca provided the framework or the examples, but there is a need to actually cascade it down to other areas that do not have the capacity or the capability to actually implement it. Yeah, that's my answer for the first one. I think the second one on the massive activity, tourism activity in Malacca and conflict with the locals. Yesterday I just called the tourism unit in Malacca and they was asking them how many local actually live in the core zone, and they say there's only 10 houses out of the 2,000, only 10 houses left. So a lot of these houses are now becoming business places. It becomes a place for cafes and souvenir shops and bars and all that. And the local actually move slightly outside Malacca. So they only move in to do their business, and they do not actually live there anymore. I think this out migration, gentrification of area is affecting both Malacca and Penang. And again, property prices become very expensive now with development and tourism, and they cannot afford the rental. If they were renting, and now they move out. So I think in terms of conflict, as I said earlier, when you ask locals, they will just say, "Oh, we just avoid the area," because Malacca is not full every day. Yeah? It is a weekend town, we call it. It's only from Friday to Monday. Some of the business owners are actually from Kuala Lumpur. They open up a boutique hotel. They only come there on Friday. They operate it on Monday. They come back to KL. You know, it's like somehow it has become like that at the moment lah. Yeah, maybe Cik Rosli, kalau you ada comment on how locals is there conflict between tourists and locals in Penang or Malacca?
Yeah, please jump in.
Come on, Cik Rosli.
Thank you. Yep. That what it is. Has what has been explained by Faisal. You're perfectly correct. Because we already started earlier in Malacca. For example, the conservation method that we use. Because we started with zero knowledge on conservation in 1980s, a lot of try and error. So we used different method, and after 10 and 20 years, now we can see the result of that method, whether it's feasible or not. But of course, half of it failed. So that's what happened now, that we revise our conservation principle and also conservation guideline and also method to be used for heritage building in Malacca, because that should be easier for other towns in Malaysia to follow, because it's actually almost similar in terms of construction, building materials similar. We use brick and mortar. So Malacca provide a good lab actually to provide the evidence of the successful of the conservation method being used earlier. So that's it. Regarding the property, after the World UNESCO listing, the property value tremendously increased in Malacca. A small shop house, for example, in World Heritage Site easily cost 2 million ringgit at that time. That was during 2008. And with that 2 million ringgit, we able to buy two big bungalows outside. So that's why a lot of these elderly people move out, because the World Heritage Site is no longer conducive for elderly people. It's so noisy, so many people, so they move up to stay in bigger house outside, right? So out migration, and these people brought with them all these traditional, the intangible cultural heritage of that place is gone. So no more traditional trade in the World Heritage Site. It's all new hipsters, cafe, hipster souvenir shops. So all the traditional activities, traditional trade are gone. Yeah, that's what happened now in Malacca. Thank you.
Thank you, Cik Rosli. Ivan, do you want to jump in?
Are we still talking about Malacca, or?
I think the last one, it's also about I think one of the principles that you talk about, resilience, community.
Good example as well. We got you example, same issues like Malacca and Penang.
What was that?
Vegan.
Yeah,
vegan.
of course. Well, yeah, vegan. It's a little bit right now a problematic issue because of the earthquake reconstruction. Unfortunately, we don't have clear funding released for the reconstruction of the damaged structures, and I know that it's been a challenge, and the local community has been really asking for help. So again, we also had a forum on fire yesterday at the commission, at the National Cultural Commission, and we really need to put in a lot of resiliency measures with regard to our sites. I think that there is a need for us to do a lot of periodic structural monitoring. For now, the Philippines has always been reactionary when it comes to earthquake damage, but I believe that there is a need for us to really look at structural issues even before earthquake strike and typhoon strike. As you know, we've had a lot of structures also destroyed by the stronger typhoons that have hit the Philippines as a result of this climate crisis. And we just lost one of our important heritage buildings 3 months ago, the Manila Central Post Office, and it really raises the important point of fire prevention measures, including the incorporation of technologies that can warn our managers on fires that start in our historic buildings. So again, we really have a lot of work to do when it comes to resiliency. But you know, one of the big one of the big measures that we should be doing is really preparedness. We have to prepare our stakeholders on how to really address these things when they hit, or even prevent these things from doing more damage than they already would at the current situation.
Thank you. I think I want to, before we go to the third question, Pak Punto and Mbak Esti, do you have any follow-up comments? Or
Yeah, thank you for Pak Faisal and also Cik Rusli for your explanations. The thing is that there are some of Indonesian cities coming to Malacca, for example, and looking for example of how to develop their city based on their heritage assets. But I'm not sure if they also learn about how you develop your conservation principle, or otherwise they only follow the example of develop tourism based on heritage assets. That's why I was asking that questions, whether your conservation principle is also evolve after you learn the negative impact of tourism on Malacca. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Mbak Esti, do you wanna? Oh, I think he's not there. So, all right. Yeah, I got a message from Dr. Ivan. So, yeah, you have to catch a flight. So, but so you will leave soon. So before that, I think this is like actually from the ICOMOS Indonesia. We need to have a group picture. Yeah. Shall we do it right now? Shall we do it right now before you leave, Ivan? All right. If those of you who can, yeah, because those of, okay, thank you for turn on your video. We will take a picture, and then after that, we just come back to the question from Ibu Maya. All right. I will ask one of the photographers to take a picture.
I think the person who is doing the hosting, you should be able to do the.
I can do that.
Then you can do the screenshot.
I can do this.
Rosli,
all right.
Come nearer to the camera. Rosli, Nor. Rosli Nor, come nearer to the camera. And Rosli Ali, we need to see your face, not your shoulder.
No, I can see it. All right,
Ali,
everyone.
Rosli Ali is we only see his shoulder. Rosli Nor, yes, beautiful picture of him.
All right, everyone.
Turn on their video.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. Okay, another one. Sometimes they just like messing up with the algorithm. All right. Thank you, everyone. And
Ivan.
yeah, I will let you go, Ivan. Thanks for coming, and yeah, hope we can chat more about the principles and your work.
Thank you, Ivan.
Especially.
Thank you very much.
Ivan, before you leave, I just want
Yeah.
to ask, did you join the GA in Quebec in 2008?
Yes, that's where
I
I
think we
met
have
you.
met before.
Yes, that's where I met you.
Yeah, finally, I remember you.
When we were much younger.
Yes, in the youth activities.
You know, the thing about Quebec is we were able to get the first resolution from the General Assembly enacted for youth participation, and that
Oh,
was
yes.
in 2008.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, ICOMOS was not ready for emerging professionals at that time.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of resistance from
the old generation.
From the old generation, and that's why it kind of fizzled out. That effort to include young people in ICOMOS kind of fizzled out in 2008. But now that this was revived recently, and now that we have the emerging professionals.
I was in ECOM when we make a push for the EPs to be recognized.
Yes.
At Marrakesh, we actually make a strong case at the assembly. And I think what actually tipped the scale over, that Marrakesh was a time when we used a lot of EPs to help out with the background work. And what tipped the whole scenario in favor of using the EP is the pandemic. Some good actually came out of the pandemic.
Then we should thank you also, KB.
It's a group effort. The whole ECOM. We got thank Michael Landa, Doug Comer, and then also what's his name? The two ladies. Dide McDermott and our friend in Australia, which will meet soon. Oh gosh, this all right. Too many meetings today.
All right. Will you be in the next?
We will be in Sydney.
Yeah, will you be in Sydney, Ivan?
Yes, a very expensive General Assembly, but yes, I will be in Sydney.
If we are successful in getting the bid for the 2026, it will be quite cheap for all of us.
Yes, please.
Is this for the
triannual? The triannual.
You're going to try for 2026.
Yeah,
we are.
Let's support Malaysia.
Let's support. Yes, definitely. I wish that the Philippines can host an AGA in the future, but until our airport system is fixed, I don't think I would like to invite anyone big events here in the Philippines. But I've actually hosted an annual meeting of the ICTC way back in 2012, and we did a really good program for that. But for bigger events, I don't think we are ready because of our infrastructure. But yeah, definitely Malaysia has the capacity to host it, especially with your airport in.
No, but we're going to hold it in Kuching.
Kuching.
It's even closer to you, Ivan.
You can take a boat there.
Yeah, but how about the international delegates flying to Kuching?
Kuching is the international airport. We have direct links from Singapore and Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, okay.
As well as regional airports. By 2026, I think we should be having a direct link from Hong Kong as well. And Bangkok.
I'm
and
surprised.
Australia, don't forget, there's direct link from Australia.
To Kuching,
Yeah, Perth.
Okay. Well, let's see what happens but yeah, I haven't been to Kuching, so I would like to definitely see it. But yeah, it's been since 2008. It's been quite some time.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that that we really we pushed for the resolution in 2008. It got approved, but it was watered down a lot.
Yeah, I remember you are one of the most active youth participants at that time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, ICOMOS was not ready for young people. So we just focused on I focused on ICTC after that because pushing for the youth participation was a little bit challenging many years ago.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks
so
for
hope
coming, Ivan,
yeah,
and
hope
thanks
hope
for joining this and become
Okay.
a speaker. We really appreciate that.
yeah, of course,
Hope to see you again.
looking forward to more partnerships,
Yeah, sure.
especially since ICOMOS Philippines has a new board already.
Yes.
So I hope
Yeah, we
that
met
you've
Chick
been
last APA meeting.
yeah. So Chick is now the president of ICOMOS Philippines, and I know that we will be doing a lot of partnerships. I've been, of course, I used to be in the board, but now I cannot because of conflict of interest.
Yep.
Because I am now the UNESCO Secretary General, so I cannot be in the national committee active. But
Mhm.
yeah, I will definitely. I look forward to working with everyone,
Sure.
and
Thank you, Ivan.
maybe some transnational nominations in the works.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you.
Ivan.
See you. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Please
Bye-bye.
let you go. Thank you. All right. Let's get back. So this is actually a very important question from Ibu Maya. I'll just read it. So to the speaker and also to all of us, if you want to comment on it. She said, I remember during the pandemic, there was a growing trend of virtual tour. So, how are your perspectives on this? And also the necessity, the roles of social media and artificial intelligence, which is actually right now becoming a trend in cultural heritage tourism, the AI, ChatGPT, the use and misuse. So, Faisal, do you want to
maybe I
comment
can
on it?
share a
Yeah.
little bit about this virtual tours.
Right,
Because
right.
during the COVID, the government has actually helped a lot on the tourism sector, like providing salary subsidies and handouts and all that. But I think one of it is they actually go down to there is a government department called the National Productivity Board that actually goes down to different community to help them to do virtual tours. And we have friends, colleagues that actually offered virtual tours during the COVID period. Of course, there are many types. Some just take people on a camera and move around, but some are quite successful. For example, I know some people who actually teach people through virtual tours on how to do particular food stuff and like tempe. You all Indonesian, tempe.
Yeah.
There is a local person that actually teaches how tempeh is made from the farm to actual production. And now after COVID, she stopped doing guiding. She sells tempeh. She sells, because now tempeh in Malaysia is sold in plastic, but because she sells it in the traditional leaves and all that, now she sort of like stop it and does that. And there are also virtual tours which are quite successful, where even in a normal, if you go there physically, you can't do it. For example, going up a tower or going up into places where even physically you cannot experience it, and you can only experience it virtually. And this one continued, but I think the rest now tourism has really picked up, and I think the tourist guides and local community involved in tourism also have no time. They are now handling physical tourists. They sort of like drop this virtual tour thing. Yeah, so that's a little bit of an experience on the Malaysian side.
Great, thank you.
Maybe Afzal
Yeah.
had done a virtual tour. Afzal?
Okay.
Yes, I did. For quite a few, either in the form of for a city guide, pushing circling around the city itself, and we have also where we have in between both recorded and also a live tour as well. So it's mostly for very good for educational, especially for even for history classes. geography classes as well is very useful for the kids as well, because most of the kids are not able to be in the class. So I also be able to use the Zoom meeting, for example, and put it on the car, and we travel along the city center, and we have a chat with the local people as well at the same time. So it was very interactive in the same time. I mean, student can ask at that point of time as well, very lively conversation at the same time, but in the same time, securing and also protecting their health as well. So I think it was a good experience. It was also forcing us to be a little bit more, not little bit, but very, very creative and innovative in the same time. So I think, I mean, apart from that, it's something which is, I think Faisal is mentioning just now, the coming of the opening up of the borders, tone down a bit this particular aspect of but it's something that we need to look back into it properly in order, especially when we talk about carrying capacity. I think that would be very useful if we want to control the numbers of people coming over. And I mean, I was talking to Rosli just now, but I don't know whether is it possible to have a visa which is very dedicated to a certain place. For example, if I mean, for the Muslim, if you want to go for the Mecca, you need to have a very dedicated visa for the Umrah or for your Hajj. So I don't know whether is it possible or not. In the case, on the context of Southeast Asia region, we have that sort of concept in order for us to, one is to improve the financing, but the second time is actually to control the number of people and protecting the authenticity and integrity of the sites. So I mean it's a long process. It's something which we've been talking a lot for quite a while, but it's something that is worth for us to explore after this.
Yeah, very interesting. And also, you know, the question of authenticity. Yeah, Pak Suhardi, do you wanna please?
Yes, thank you, Bu Rina. Of course, this is for Faisal, but if any other colleagues from Malaysia would like to add on, also possible. First is regarding Malacca again, as we have noticed from your presentation and from other webinars or discussions, that how this cultural tourism, the negative impact of cultural tourism have taken toll on the local communities and giving the negative impacts. My question is, has there been any, and this discussion on the importance of controlling the visitors and how to deal with the adverse impacts of this mass tourism have been going around at the global level. My question is, has there been any efforts by either national government or local government in Malacca to cope with this situation? Is there, for example, from legal framework or from any other measures, or even from the tourism sector itself? Yeah, that's first. Later, I will continue with the second one.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may answer, Pak Suhardi. Number one, I think when you talk about cultural tourism, there are principles that we follow. I think the impact comes from mass tourism. The mass tourism is the one that I mean, those people who come in big buses and all that. But when you talk about cultural tourism, you're talking about people who actually go to a particular area to actually experience the culture. And I think the number is probably, sometimes the number is not the issue. You can have a lot of people in one place, and yet if the behavior is good, it'll be positive. The impact can be positive. You can have a little people, but they come to the area and the behavior is not that good. It can have a negative impact. Sometimes the number is not the issue. The issue is the tourist behavior. And that's where guides are very important. And you know, there are a lot of places now in Malaysia that require experienced guide, not only telling the story, but also influencing the behavior of the tourists. And in Malacca and Georgetown, the government had started the cultural tourism, cultural heritage specialist guide very early. I was involved in it with UNESCO Bangkok, and we tried that model to Penang and Malacca. But it's difficult to put it as a government policy, because unlike, let's say, Angkor or Borobudur, which has no community and has only one entry point, Malacca and Georgetown has a living community and many entry points. So it's quite difficult for enforcement purposes. Guides can just come in from KL, from Johor Bahru and guide. So it's quite difficult. Although I think Malacca government did ask the federal government, is it possible that when you enter Malacca, you use a qualified trained Malacca guide? But I think it cannot go through because because you know there's so many entry points and all that. So at the moment, yeah, I think that's the situation. Yeah, unless heritage places which has an entry point, especially natural sites like Kinabalu and Mulu that has a gate, so it's easier to manage tourism behavior through proper guiding enforcement.
Yeah, I can relate to your comments and to your you bring up this issue of these cultural heritage specialist guides. Actually, my question triggered from that idea of providing a specialist heritage guide for Malacca and Georgetown. As in 2006, I was also joined that course in Georgetown actually, and I learned that is a purposely drafted or organized course in order to prepare Malacca and Georgetown to face this kind of negative impacts of cultural tourism. But sadly, as you said, those measures could not be in place at this moment. And hopefully something will do. Yeah, KB, maybe you have something.
Yeah, I just have put in my two cents worth. And I think number one, insofar as tourism is concerned, the authorities likes to see numbers. And as Faisal rightly pointed out, Malacca and Georgetown have multiple entry points, so you can't even charge entry fees. Okay, number one. Number two, the other problem is that mass tourism is actually the problem. And when it comes to mass tourism, that's where I think the government can do something about it. They can ask the tourism players not to send mass tourism to these places. The true FIT cultural tours are okay. I think our friend Shakani, Faisal, he takes small tours of a small van load, maybe 7, 8. It's still a tour group, but those are very small groups, and he take them down. It's okay. There's not much impact. But I think more damaging is that we have never actually measured our carrying capacity. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rosalie. Rosalie, no. We have never actually carry out a proper carrying capacity of our ancient cities. Malacca is a very tiny city. It's a medieval city. The roads are not even meant for motor cars. They're more meant for bullock carts and trishaws and walking, of course. And one experience I have, the experience I have as a technical missions for World Heritage inscription is that inevitably nobody appreciate how devastating the tourism figures can go up once you get listed on the World Heritage site. They always have think is not going to go up by that much. But so long as it's cultural site, unless you're talking about Lengong and things like that, but even Lengong in Malaysia, you are looking at if it's well managed and it's well maintained, you will also see a phenomenal increase in visitors footfalls. And this is something I think a lot of communities don't understand. My biggest debate I had in my last mission is trying to persuade the authorities that you need a carrying capacity study to see how many people that place can take. and to work out mitigating measures that will reduce the numbers at peak period. None of them want to listen to that because they don't believe it will reach that number. And yet at the same time, they say, oh, during their annual festival, they are looking at visitor footfall of up to 100,000 or more. And I look at the little place that was supposed to take 100,000 or more. I said, where are the people going to stand, let alone walk? Thank you.
Yeah,
Alright,
thank you.
KB. Bu Rina, my last question to Pak Faisal is regarding the first principle that we all agree that this charter really supporting the tourism charter, really supporting the management and conservation of cultural heritage. So perhaps Pak Faisal could share with us, especially that part of this principle number 1, that saying that revenue from the cultural heritage tourism should contribute to the efforts or to the works of conservation and management. Is there any places on Earth or any historic buildings or any historic sites which could become a good example of the application of this principle so far?
I wouldn't know outside of Malaysia, but I think Malacca in 2012 decided to collect heritage tax from the hotels at 5%. But I think because of political issue, they change it to heritage charges, RM2 per night room in Malacca. And I think I don't know how much is it in Penang, RM5. I think, I don't know, Cik Rosli. So I mean, Penang followed suit. But however, this money comes into a pool, and we actually don't know what is it spent for. I think some of it can be, because it says it's going to be used for conservation, for promotion, for whatever. I think some minister may use it to go for a promotional trip somewhere, doing exhibition and all that. So we really don't know. But I think Malacca still practice that RM2 heritage charge per hotel. It's something which they wanted to use to get back this tourism revenue for conservation. I think Malaysia also introduced the tourism tax after that, after Malacca and Penang. So the federal government also did it, but it never got implemented because I think a lot of pressure from the tourism players, especially tour operators and travel agents, because it increases their costs. You see, because this mass tourism is all about volume and cheap tours, yeah. And I think that is the issue now. I think KB is right. We focus a lot on numbers, but our new national policy, tourism policy, actually talks about sustainability and inclusivity. But I think there's no measure. If I attend some of this meeting, they still look at numbers and they still look at how many people come in. But I guess maybe it's all about understanding, because I do have friends in the tourism, a lot of friends in the tourism agencies and departments. I think it's a matter of getting them to really understand and appreciate the principle. And we have not got into that yet. And it's quite difficult also for me because the Department of Heritage and the Department of Tourism Development is different, you know, and yes, it's usually they work in silo and they're like they're protecting their areas. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Faisal. We share the same challenges and situations. Bu Rina, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I think the carrying capacity, and also whether the numbers, tourism is kind of like lies on the, if you have more tourists, meaning like more revenue. But like, I think that the cultural tourism charter actually wanna argue it's actually not, the revenue does not necessarily translate into the, let's say, community gain or community resilience, rather than, it will ruin the sites and the people. I think, Pak Faisal, you mentioned something about the stories from the local community, right? And then how you wanna kind of like trying to build from that, which is, I think that's also what Indonesia needs right now.
May I comment a little bit? I was in,
please.
I was in Jeju, Korea, I think 3 years ago, and there was a
Oh, yeah.
presenter who did research on Commodore Island, your heritage site, yeah, and she did actually a comparison of how much money actually goes to the local community from 3 different types of tourists. One is the cruise people who come on the cruise. Number 2 is people who come on tour package, and the third is people who come free independent traveler. And you know, if you look at it from the outside, people who travel via cruise are affluent people, very, very rich people. People who come free independent traveler are backpackers. You know, they seem to spend little. But in terms of revenue capture, for the, if I can remember correctly, for the cruise, it's only 5 US cents for every $1 that is they pay for a cruise goes to Commodore. What do you call the island? Commodore, is it?
Yeah.
Komodo
Komodo Island.
Commodore. Okay, actually go to Commodore because the cruise is managed by big tour operators. You know, whereas those people who come to Commodore as a free independent traveler, they seem cheap. They look like cheap tourists, but they actually spend, they eat there, they live there, and actually they spend $1, 90 cents of that $1 actually benefit local community. So sometimes you cannot see it as like that, you know. Yeah, but I think if I look for it, I can find that paper. So it was done in Commodore. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I thought it was quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Great point.
KB, do you wanna?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, but I thought maybe if time is catching up, maybe not. But back in 1989, I think one of the countries that got their tourism plan absolutely spot on is Singapore. And back in 1989, I was fortunate enough to be invited to join a Singapore MITI study trip to Indonesia. And that's when the Southern Islands, they call it the Southern Islands in Singapore, was planned as far back as that. I think that's where planning is important. And the way they plan it and the way they were talking about moving up the food chain. That's why Singapore, one of the reasons why we are a Malaysian casual visitors down driving into Singapore is not encouraged. And they put in all these 5 days and 10 days and all this because of that you can drive down. It's because they want to limit the number of casual. They will prefer you fly in. Flying their airport makes money, so the local community captured. And then and usually people who fly in stay in hotels. So when you driving to visit, people driving 5-6 people driving in, they probably stay with relatives, and there's no money in it. You know, things like this. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I think that this is where very long-term planning, whether any of us have the guts to say forget about short-term planning to please the electorate and things like that, and go for really long-term. I was surprised that 1989, the things that they're talking about, when they were already talking about the F1 in 1989. They were talking about the casino in 1989 when the old man still say no gambling in this country. You know, the late old Mr. Lee. And they were already talking about that. And this whole thing was led by a member of the Lee family himself, the member of the Lee family. And we were discussing this in Bali. So when I hear all these casino plans and all, I understand why they have to discuss it in Bali. Otherwise, the old man will stop the discussion straight away.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Actually, we have like, but this is perhaps a homework for all of us. I think a second part of the question from Ibu Maya earlier, which is actually asking about the roles of AI, artificial intelligence, I think, yeah, so, how does it, or how it could be useful, but it can also, another dilemmas or misuse in managing the cultural sites, I think, with the rise of AI and new technologies. I mean, I am not, and I'm sure we are not anti-technology, but I think Mr. Faisal mentioned that, yeah, but we need people to work, right? We need people to work. So also how to have a balance between these two, the local and also the outside and the new technologies that's happening right now. I think that's it. Thank you very much from ICOMOS, to ICOMOS Malaysia, Pak Faisal Abd Rahman, also to my colleague in ICOMOS Indonesia, Pak Suhardi. Oh, I forgot Mr. KB. Thank you for. I will maybe ask Pak Suhardi to close the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Rina. And I think all fellow participants and colleagues from Malaysia and Philippines and all from all other countries, I think this is a very exciting discussion, and hopefully we can share also these fruitful discussions to our fellows outside who have not been able to join this webinar. And especially for Faisal, can share what we have talked about this afternoon to your fellow in ICTC. And we hope that we could organize another webinar, another joint webinar, either with Malaysia or with other countries in Asia Pacific in the framework of Asia Pacific Regional Network collaboration. And when we are going to organize our other webinar, even though in Bahasa, I think we should also from now on distribute the invitation to our colleagues in Malaysia. Perhaps you guys would like to join us as well. Yeah. And likewise, vice versa. We hope that if you have any other webinar or activities, please share with us here in Indonesia, and we would try our best how to join them, since we are so close physically and also using technology. So thank you again, KB and Pak Faisal and Pak Afzal, Pak Rosli, Pak Rosli Ali, Rosli Noor, and all other my fellow ex-committee member in ICOMOS Indonesia, Bu Maya, Pak Punto, Bu Rina, Mbak Nisa, for all of your efforts, and my colleagues at ICOMOS Indonesia, thank you for your attention and your participation. See you all again.
Yep.
Have a great weekend. Bye. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Good.
Thank you, Bu Rina.
Oh yeah, sama-sama. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.